Today, we're joined by Ankur Jindal, Vice President and Head of Corporate Innovation, as well as Emerging Technologies at Tata Communications. Tata is one of the world's largest digital infrastructure providers, supporting enterprises, carriers, and connectivity across more than 190 countries. Their global scale and role in powering critical communications make their exploration of distributed ledger technology an important look into the future of trusted digital systems. A gigantic thank you to the Hashgraph Association for helping to make these conversations possible. And as always, nothing in these discussions are financial advice. Welcome, Ankur. Again, here we are. We've had a couple of goes at this as far as trying to get recording times lined up, but here we are. For those that may not be aware of Tata Communications, can you give a brief overview of the organization and talk a little bit about your role at Tata? And thank you so much for joining.
Well, thanks, Ryan, first of all, to you and to Hashgraph Association to give us the opportunity to speak on this podcast. Yes, to introduce ourselves, Tata Communication is one of the leading providers globally of digital infrastructure, platform, and solutions. And we largely serve the large enterprise, the Fortune 500, across different sectors like banking, financial services, manufacturing, retail, e-commerce, media, OTT, and automotive. And our intent in serving our customers is to be the digital fabric for any leading global enterprise across networking, cloud, IoT, and interactions. Now, as VP leading Tatacom's efforts on innovation and emerging technology, I work very closely with our leadership, our strategic customers and partners to bring the power of disruptive technologies to our customers and help find solutions to their pressing needs and also solve internal challenges. So that's broadly where I'm coming from.
Awesome. And it's always interesting. I'm always curious of the backstory. If you could maybe touch base a little bit on what first made an organization that is as big as Tata Communications get involved, start exploring blockchain and distributed ledger. I think that would be really eye-opening for the audience here.
Yeah, sure. So, as part of our emerging technology scan, which is one of the things we do, we had identified blockchain as a technology, blockchain and DLT per se as a technology to watch for. And with immutability and trust as a core tenets of a DLT technology, we believe that it offers a lot of promise in powering the Web 3.0 economy and the digital economy of the future. And Tata Communications was one of the first members to join the council, and this gave us a seat on the table to understand this technology better and also to explore potential use cases that we could deploy in our business.
So I think it's interesting, and it leads me into kind of maybe some of a background in telecom. Billing disputes and settlement challenges have existed in telecom for decades. From your standpoint, why is now the right time to use things like distributed ledger technology to address issues that have been around for so long?
Yes, you're right. I mean, these issues have been there for a long time, many decades. And there have been many players and multiple forums in which people have tried to explore blockchain as a solution to this problem, but few have progressed, and industry adoption and success has been elusive, right, for the industry. But I think few things have changed that are today making it possible for us to solve this problem with a clear return on investment. First and foremost, I think post-COVID, we have seen the global transaction volumes powered by communication providers have multifold scaled, right? So that makes a problem much bigger, right? And all of these digital transactions require operators to manage cross-border contracts with each other. And this is becoming increasingly complex and very expensive. An average operator typically spends anywhere from $500,000 to few $1,000,000 in OpEx to manage these to third parties. Now, so there is a clear benefit that there to be had. But the more important factor is on supply side. I think having somebody like Hedera backing it up, providing grants to make the MVP possible, and trialing this with our potential suppliers gave us the head start. But also picking a problem like billing. Billing is a very specific problem related to our suppliers. So we said, instead of trying to boil the ocean, let's focus on the specific problem and try to drive adoption. And then third was to look at an innovative business model where we're not the only tenant, but we become one of the tenants for this platform, and this becomes a SaaS service. And then we explore other players, even outside telecom, to start using this as a platform. So I think combination of these factors have kind of made it feasible from a business case perspective to explore this.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting where you talk about
Yeah,
actually solving problems. We're at the point where you can
yeah,
leverage distributed ledger to actually start solving some real world problems. So I think that kind of leads me into maybe a description from you on how carriers settle and reconcile traffic today. What's broken, or where are the pain points in those processes? How significant are these problems in terms of cost, revenue leakage, cash flow inefficiencies, things like that?
yeah. So see, when any two parties are trying to communicate, like you and me are chatting here, or when one user is talking to another user or sending data, right? Uh, these exchanges or transactions happen over different telecom operator networks, right? We are in different locations, different geographies, and if you extend that to even devices and IoT, this becomes a much broader network that it needs to kind of transit. Now, to facilitate this exchange of data and to monetize, operators need to then exchange billions of call data records or CDRs, so to say, right? That to settle payments to each other, to monitor usage, and offer what user has subscribed for, and then based on the usage and rates, which are all manually driven contracts, do the billing and settlement, right? So this process, as you can see, is broken in many ways. Number one, this happens to bilateral engagement, and there are hundreds of operators around the world that need to do it. So the permutations makes it highly complex, and it typically involves third-party settlement intermediaries to do this, and this bleeds margins and takes money, right? Secondly, the process to exchange the data, generate these bills, reconcile any discrepancies is manual and hence prone to errors. So typically the industry, on the average, I would say loses close to $3 to $5 billion just in disputes, right? For example, and as you can see, there is no standardization records. There are multiple sources of data, multiple sources of truth. There are manual audits that each operator maintains, and hence the ledgers are separate, mismatched, and there is no single source of truth. So that's another problem, right? And last but not the least, there because of lack of automation, operators have to deploy many resources to manage this process. It takes more than 30 days to settle, and any operator multi-million dollars in admin cost, to manage this. So as you can see, the problem is big, and it's ripe for a solution like blockchain.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think you start explaining, and it's like, oh my God, like
Yeah,
there is just so much, to be done. But as you kind of mentioned before, too, it's so important to get it right. That's why it's so important to make sure that the trials are very consistent and that you're, tackling things kind of from all facets. So that kind of leads me from all of your description of all of the different processes involved with how kind of telecom and settlement and reconciliation work right now. How does a technology like Hedera fit into this picture? How does I think the real big change in blockchain and DLT that we've started to see over the past 12 to 24 months is like solving actual problems.
Mhm.
So how does using Hedera change how records are reconciled or how settlement happens between carriers, out of kind of all that you just kind of described?
Yeah. So I think we have obviously worked very closely with the Hashgraph and the Hedera team to see how we can leverage DLT, given its tenets of trust and provenance and immutability. I think the right technology for this kind of problem, right? So one, a distributed ledger would replace a siloed system, right? So hence, they will be shared immutable records of each transaction, and hence it will provide single source of truth. So that's number one benefit of having a DLT, where you can not only have a single source, but we can have proper provenance to those records, right? Now this happens in multiple ways. Now DLT using smart contracts, you can now automate workflows, right, between operators that typically are involved in this kind of process. And this is all based on immutable storage of contract terms, reference documents. So these are easily referenceable because they are on blockchain and they are powered by smart contracts. Next, consensus-based validation. Now every invoice is now stamped and validated against agreed rates and consumption volume. So whatever operators are agreeing is not manual, it's not on the system, and it's all on the distributed ledger. So this has a potential to resolve disputes by up to 90%. So typically, if they are being resolved on the blockchain, there will be less disputes, right? So that's number two. Number three, human intervention is not needed anymore because now this can be done on the system, and the resolution can be avoided. It will speed up the resolution, speed up the invoicing. The week of research, back and forth, emails that happen between carriers will be eliminated, right? And everything will be as per contract terms, which are recorded, right? Not manual. Um, and two more things. One, I think reduce working capital lock-in because since the cycle times for settlement are 30 days plus, it can potentially free up a few $100 million in liquidity per a tier for a tier one carrier, for example, right? So you can clearly see that DLT has a clear role, and I think the fact that Hedera is a next generation DLT with very high throughput, you're talking of 10,000 plus transactions per second, um, and very low predictable transaction costs. I think this makes it suitable for millions and billions of micro settlement that need to happen between carriers on a daily basis. So that's how I think we are looking at it. I think it's a right technology for the right problem.
Certainly a lot of work to be done, I'm sure. And I know that you guys have mentioned
Yeah.
that you've done a lot of work, a lot of minimum, MVPs that have been launched. I should also, just note briefly as a sidebar here, there's a lot of tooling in Hedera that's just getting better and better, whether it's, these
Yeah.
different studios like AI Studio, Tokenization Studio, these different things I'm sure really help with rapid deployment. But back to kind of the question that I kind of have here that I'm sure people are interested in. Can you talk about some of the work that Tata Communications has done as far as proof of concepts thus far with these suppliers, with other operators, and where does that overlap with Hedera?
Yeah. So, as I said, we work closely with the hash graph team. So we started by picking the billing problem, and then we have expanded that to a larger problem, which I will talk about. But essentially, we have done a couple of, I would say, not just proof of concept for billing. We've actually successfully implemented a system where Hedera brought the power of their underlying layer one and layer two DLT and services, and we complemented by building a layer three application on top that enables billing to happen, right? So this system is implemented, it's live. We have 100% adoption of our suppliers. Close to about 1,300 suppliers are now using this system, right? And we are settling our billing 100% on this platform. So it's no more a POC; it's a live platform, right? And our intent is now to expand that concept and say, now can we extend that to become a global roaming marketplace where any operator can come and they can contract, they can settle, they can essentially manage their entire life cycle, right, on the platform. So that's something we worked on an initial POC with the Hashgraph Association, and we are testing this between Zane, who is another council member, and ourselves. So the idea is to drive initial testing and adoption of this platform, and then take it to the wider market globally.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there, and maybe we're gonna have to probably
Yeah,
do a follow-up interview at some point here and just
yeah,
tackle some of these things individually. So from these pilots, and I think you mentioned Zane and the
yeah.
work and collaboration with other really really big companies throughout there. What are some of the early results? I mean, you guys are obviously, it seems like there's a lot of to be positive about with some of these proof of concepts, to the point that, like you just said, there's platforms that are going live with solutions. What are some of the learnings that have been the most encouraging? Where do you kind of see this kind of going, I guess next?
So I think, as I said, there has been, at least for our billing platforms, 100% adoption, and I think we continue to take feedback and add features like better reporting on disputes, etc., to this platform. There is still work to be done. But then on the second one that I mentioned, the larger roaming POC we did, I think there is a lot of work needs to happen to build this platform, make it more scalable, and enable other operators to come on it. So working on the business model that makes it feasible for operators to come and sign up and hence drive this transformation that's needed. So I think the learning has been tremendous, the feedback has been great, and I think we are pretty confident that if we continue to work on this path together, I think we can definitely drive industry level transformation on this part of the business.
I love what you said earlier about not trying to boil the ocean right off
Yeah.
the bat, and it's like solving real problems. I think you can learn a lot from not trying to be the master of
Yeah.
everything, but really tackling things, piece by piece.
Hmm.
Uh, you describe this future marketplace where any two operators can
Yeah.
contract, reconcile, and settle on, kind of this bigger platform.
Yeah.
What does that look like at a high level? And I'm sure there are a lot of steps to get there. But what do you kind of maybe expand a little bit on what you envision with this type of a marketplace in the future?
Yeah. Yeah, so our vision is to, as I said, fundamentally transform the way operators manage their intercarrier engagement, right? And to enable the global transaction that's happening and scaling more as we speak, right? And idea is that can we ease the pain points on both efficiencies, cost, and working capital that I enumerated a little while back. I think DLT can can be leveraged to track and automate the entire digital life cycle of a service for any operator. And let's look at the steps that are required. Firstly, service initiation. For example, a smart contract record where when a call session starts, so a smart contract will record that, right, to when it starts. Secondly, to authenticate the user. Is the user genuine? Is it authorized to avail the service? So there's a specific initiation of the service as a user logs in. So that's number one. So there is trust built into that, right? And security. The second aspect is uh, quality of service and SLAs. The real-time data in terms of latency or bandwidth usage, or is all recorded immutably, even the agreed service terms and all of that, right? So this adds an element of trust and transparency because now everybody has a single source of view on what these SLAs or service level agreements are, what's the quality of service agreement and performance and usage, etc. Right. So this it brings kind of visibility to it. And third but not the least is, smart contracts can now, because it records what carriers have agreed to in terms of rates and usage. Now you can auto calculate charges based on actual usage, and these are no more estimates, and you can do it more near real time rather than as a matter of fact afterwards, right? So this I think this ensures that even consumers pay for what they use, and the operators don't have to get into very expensive disputes, etc. So essentially we believe that this integrated approach to this marketplace can help operators uh, on total take about $1 to $2 billion annually, in terms of in terms of revenue leakage. So I think there is a large benefit to be had, and it's a much bigger problem to be solved beyond the billing one that we have taken up.
Yeah, I think it's really awesome to think like, and this is another just kind of quick sidebar for me. Um, there's so many intangibles that happen when you start streamlining all of these processes. Like it opens up probably so many more
Mhm.
ideas and use cases and business models and things like that. It's
Yeah.
interesting because I know in 2025, well, we're almost in
Yeah.
2026 now. Who knows when this will go out?
Yeah.
I remember a handful of years ago, micropayments were a huge
Mm.
thing being tested with blockchain and distributed ledger. It almost seemed like it was a little bit too early for its time, and it's almost like we're coming back to some of the things that we start with when we start getting into instantaneous settlement and things like that, discussions like that.
Mm.
Micropayments as well as micro reconciliation from the client standpoint, paying bills and things. It's just everything's going to happen so fast in the future. It's crazy where we're going. This leads me to my next question because there are a lot of different areas of technology converging with the growth of Internet of Things and blockchain. People, we love to invent new terms. So let's say DPIN for blockchain.
Mhm.
But Internet of Things, cloud communications, and
Mm.
artificial intelligence or AI driven
Mm. Mm.
interactions.
Mm.
How do these technologies change the connectivity challenge? And where can a technology like Hedera provide value with these different technologies out there?
So let's take IoT as an example, just to put forward the logic here. So you said 2026, by 2030, you're projecting about 30 billion IoT devices out there, right? And many of these devices of different forms and different industries will roam across multiple operators and countries, right? So they're traversing the whole landscape, right? And they need to do it in a much more secure manner with trust built in, right? So that is where, for example, how will a DLT and Tata can come together and offer the trust fabric where uh, two, three things can happen. Number one, every device can have a verifiable digital identity. So there is a decentralized identity. There's work happening on that one, for example, right? Secondly, how do we automate authorization and billing when devices move across networks, right? So that's the connectivity challenge. So smart contracts for cross operator access, I think, kind of provides that ability, right? And third is the fact that a lot of B2B and industrial use cases for IoT require transparency, and they require auditable usage trails, right? So look at logistics or autonomous vehicles, you need that thing. And if you say a logistics company, say with 1 million connected vehicles, could potentially save $5 to $6 per device per month, right, through this automated, accurate network settlement. Now, this means anywhere from 60 to 100 million dollars annually for a typical logistics company. So I think there is clear benefit to be had. Now you can extend that to cloud and AI, because as you move towards AI cloud and AI driven interactions, now DLT can similarly offer a trust fabric that enterprise need and consumers are increasingly demanding, right, in terms of both data and model provenance, so that we can secure the communication that happens in a hyper-connected world. So I think that's how I see what we're doing here translate to a much other sets of use cases and industries that we can potentially target.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned is absolutely. I mean, I've done so many of these interviews. It's spot
Mhm.
on with other enterprise or
Mhm.
individuals at kind of these high levels across different industries.
Yeah.
This a lot of this, well, everything starts with compliance. Everything has to be compliant, but it's really interesting where you mentioned digital identity and that you guys are thinking in that way as well, because I think a lot of the times the low hanging fruit is people hear digital identity and they're like, oh, they're talking about me. But no, this is like
Mhm.
devices and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So really, really interesting. Okay, so I want you to maybe expand a little bit, because I think you mentioned trust fabric probably
Uh-huh.
5 or 6 times in the past 10 minutes. So if you
Right.
could touch base on what a trust fabric
Mhm.
means, and I should preface, you can go to even the Hedera site, and Hedera's, the trust layer for the
Mhm.
digital economy, I think, is right on there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
enterprise standpoint, how do enterprises look at kind of this trust fabric that you're mentioning? How important is that trust, not only for consumers, but other operators and stakeholders? And how can something like DLT bolster up that trust that we've been talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think trust fabric is essential to anything. I mean, I can explain that in the context of billing and roaming use cases I was talking about, but this can apply to like supply chain logistics, where information asymmetry is a big problem even today, right? And hence, how do you incentivize all the players in a complex logistics supply chain to be able to now share data, right? For example, on inventory movement, etc. So I think this can translate to others, but let me explain in the context of billing and roaming. So, for example, I talked about a tamper-proof transparent ledger, right? That gives all parties a single version of truth. Now, I'm talking of carriers, which is operators, regulators, even customers, right? So let's examine that. Now, operators can now verify usage without manual audits, right? So it provides a kind of verifiability based on immutable records of contracts, usage, and billing rates, right? Regulators can now get instant access to this immutable logs for compliance or fraud checks, for example, right? So that it provides kind of a trust to regulators to get access to this. And then consumers, of course, benefit through fewer billing errors, faster resolution. They get better visibility on their usage. So it adds an element of trust and transparency to how consumers perceive their transactions and operators. So, in a sense, if you look at all of these, that's a trust fabric. It cuts across multiple players in the ecosystem that are important to drive adoption at scale, right? So it makes it easy for this to happen, right?
So what I think is interesting is being in blockchain, DLT, and crypto for so long, I know that
Mhm.
naturally I will just start using
Yeah.
certain phrases, even if I'm talking to somebody that's not in blockchain and DLT.
Mhm.
And I don't think that mass adoption necessarily looks like that of the technology. This kind of leads me into, for everyday users
Mhm.
that have cell phones, cell phone carriers, things like that. What is their experience going to be like? You know, people that are just receiving a phone bill, are they going to see improvements as far as the way that they pay their bills or the way that roaming charges come across? Like maybe just a little bit of explain that just for the people that aren't necessarily tech gurus, that are just like the normal everyday people that are using kind of cell phones and carriers and all that stuff.
So I think first and foremost, because you're taking inefficiencies out of the system, right? So and understand that this industry works on a very thin margins, right? The carrier industry. Now, of course, if you're taking inefficiencies out, this will translate to lower tariffs, lower costs for users. Typically, they should, right? So user will benefit from that, even if at a few percentage points. Number two, you have a lot of bill shocks and disputes today because if a consumer roams between different geographies and you get billed wrongly, but because operators have there's an issue with operator settling it at the right price and all that, and maybe you end up using more than you were eligible, and then you are given a higher bill, right? For example, so a lot of the disputes and bill shock that arise would be eliminated dramatically, right? So fewer errors means happy consumers, right? And last but not the least, because I talked about verifiable records on usage and maybe quality of service, now users can have transparent access to this blockchain verified real-time data on what they're consuming. So I think essentially, if you look at from a consumer perspective, they get more trust and less friction. And I think this could become a big differentiator in how in this low margin, high churn industry, and it can create stickiness for operators also as they engage with their customers.
I think, to take it at the opposite end of the spectrum,
Yeah.
many enterprise leaders, it seems like, are still kind of evaluating blockchain and distributed ledger. What would your message be? Well, I should preface. It seems like the writing is on the wall with blockchain and distributed ledger adoption. It seems like it's not necessarily a matter of if so much as kind of when, and these are my personal opinions. But from your standpoint, for those out there, different enterprises and leaders that might see this, what would your message be to individuals at kind of the high level of these organizations who are still just considering distributed ledger technology, but have yet to take maybe the leap into it?
Yeah, I mean, and I kind of reciprocate the sentiment because there are many listeners, I'm sure, who are sitting on the fence when it comes to building use cases in blockchain. I think the lot of the reactions, I mean, even we had, and a lot of people will have is, this is still bleeding edge. It's crypto, and there is no business case, and hence why should we do it? That's always the case. And can we not do it through just automation or process automation and stuff like that, right? RPA and stuff like that. Now, I think every problem is different and every industry is different. I would encourage innovators and CXOs to embrace this technology, have an open mind, reconsider the business model. If you're looking at a traditional way, see how you can change the business model. How can you create incentive for different players to adopt, right? And then weave this trust fabric into your services now, because customers demand it, partners are demanding it. So build that trust fabric into your products and services, and hence then you can start looking at the true benefits, and then start with some trials. Don't try to boil the ocean. Start with something smaller, try to make it successful, and then scale it as you build conviction.
Looking ahead, and I want to thank you again so much for joining today. This has been an awesome interview. What
Yeah.
excites you the most about what Tata Communications is building? Um,
Yeah.
the crossover into networks like Hedera, the
Yeah.
collaboration with the Hashgraph Association, and the coming years. It seems like I should preface. It seems like this technology is moving so fast that it's hard to keep track of what's going on every day. But yeah, would love your thoughts on the future.
I think the future is both today and present and future are hyper connected, and it's going to be increasingly hyper connected, not only with IoT and humans, but also with bots and bot to bot interaction. So I think in this hyper connected world, I think I'm most excited about our combined intent, which is to bring the power of digital fabric from Tata and combine it with the trust fabric of Hedera, and then combine that to offer a unique opportunity for enterprises and to transform how they live in this hyperconnected world, and hence serve consumers in a trustworthy and transparent way. So I think I'm most excited about this combined intent of a digital fabric with trust fabric to make a difference.
Well, I want to
Yeah.
certainly thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to also thank the Hashgraph Association for helping us to put these podcasts together. This will, I believe, come out as a Hashgraph TV episode. Ankur, I'm really excited to see all of the initiatives coming down the pipeline out of Tata Communications and all the collaborations as well. And hang out with me here for 1 second as I ramp this down to make sure we get the recording. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Ryan, for being a great host, and look forward to further engagements on this. And thank you so much to Hashgraph Association. Thank you.